Hi everyone. Today we are going to learn about immunity. First, introduction. Immunity to a disease is achieved through the presence of antibodies to that disease in a person's system. Antibodies are proteins produced by the body to neutralize or destroy toxins or disease-carrying organisms. Antibodies are disease-specific. For example, measles antibody will protect a person who is exposed to measles disease, but will have no effect if he or she is exposed to mumps. Definition of immunity. Immunity is the ability of an organism to resist a particular infection or toxin by the action of specific antibodies or sensitized white blood cells. Terminologies. Immunization. Immunization is the process by which an individual's immune system becomes fortified against an agent. Vaccine. A vaccine is a biological preparation that provides active acquired immunity to a particular infectious disease. Vaccine contain a microorganism or virus in a weakened, live or killed state, or proteins or toxins from the organism. Next, vaccination. Vaccination is the administration of a vaccine to help the immune system develop protection from a disease. Next is seroconversion. Seroconversion refers to the change from antibody negative state to antibody positive state due to induction of antibodies in response to infection or vaccination. Next is seroprotection. Seroprotection refers to the state of protection from disease due to the presence of detectable serum levels of an antibody. Next, immunogenicity. Immunogenicity is the ability of a vaccine to elicit an immune response, whether cellular, humoral, or both. Adjuvants are substances unrelated to the organism that, when added to a vaccine, enhance its immunogenicity. Next, protective efficacy. Protective efficacy is the vaccine's actual ability to protect against disease. Immunity we can classify it into different ways. Then there are mainly three types of immunity according to the development of the immunity in our body. The first one is innate immunity, second one is adaptive or acquired immunity, third one is community or herd immunity. Then the adaptive or acquired immunity, again we can divide it into two categories, that is active adaptive immunity and passive adaptive immunity. Then active adaptive immunity, again we can divide it into two, that is active natural immunity, active artificial immunity. Same like passive immunity also we can divide it into two, that is natural passive immunity and artificial passive immunity. First we can see in detail about innate or native immunity. Innate or native immunity is acquired by birth through the genes. It is more general or non-specific component of the immune system. That is, it attacks any germs that threatens the body. The innate component of the immune system mounts an immune response immediately or within a few hours of entry of pathogen. It is not affected by prior contact with the microorganisms and immunization. Components of innate immunity. There are mainly two components for innate immunity. They are external component and internal component. External component. This is the first line of defense, acting as a barrier to prevent entry of pathogens into the body. Example, skin, mucous membranes, and stomach acids. Second component is internal component. This is a second line of defense which fights pathogens once they have entered the body. This includes mechanisms like fever, inflammation, and phagocytosis. Phagocytosis is a process by which macrophages and natural killer cells of our body engulf the germ and kill them. Next is levels of innate immunity. There are mainly three levels of innate immunity. They are first one species immunity, second one racial immunity, third one individual species immunity. Total or relative resistance to pathogen shown by all members of the species is known as species immunity. Example, all human beings are resistant to plant pathogens and many animal pathogens. Second one, racial immunity. Different races within the same species may show difference in susceptibility to infection. Example, genetic resistance to Plasmodium falciparum in some parts of Africa. Then third one is individual immunity. Different immunity exhibited by different individuals in a race. That is known as individual immunity. Second type of immunity is adaptive immunity or acquired immunity. The adaptive immune system is specific. That is, it targets a specific pathogen and it takes some time to develop. It also provides long-term immunity from the specific pathogen. Before I said adaptive immunity, again we can divide it into two types, that is active adaptive immunity and a passive adaptive immunity. Now we can see in detail about the active adaptive immunity. Due to the exposure to pathogens, your body develops B cells and T cells. These cells clear the existing germs through the humoral immunity or antibody or cell-mediated immunity. Additionally, they also form memory B cells and T cells that quickly responds to future infections. Active acquired immunity can be natural or artificial. Natural active adaptive immunity means when a person has been naturally exposed to the pathogen due to infection, antibodies are produced that fight off the pathogen. Then memory cells are formed to mount a quicker response in case of reinfection. Then artificial active adaptive immunity, when the infection is created artificially in a controlled manner. The acquired immunity is known to be artificial in nature. This is seen in case of vaccination. During vaccination, a dead or inactivated germ or its proteins or toxins are injected into the body. Second subtypes of adaptive immunity is passive adaptive immunity. When ready-made antibodies are provided to the body to fight off a particular infection, it is known as passive acute immunity. This gives immediate protection from a specific infection. It is usually given to high-risk patients or to patients with immunodeficiency, means who cannot make their own antibodies. Passive adaptive immunity, again we can divide it into two types, that is natural and artificial. In natural passive immunity, certain antibodies from the mother's body reach the fetus through the placenta. Other antibodies are passed on to the child through breast milk. These antibodies provide a protection to the newborn. Next, artificial. Here, ready-made antibodies specific to the disease are introduced into the vulnerable person's bloodstream to defend against infection. These antibodies are acquired from a previously infected person or are produced in another organ. Third type of immunity is Third type of major type of immunity is community or herd immunity. This is an indirect form of immunity. When enough members of a particular community or region are immune to specific disease due to vaccination or prior illness, the members not immune to the disease are also protected. This happens due to breaking of the chain of infection, whereby the disease causing pathogen cannot spread because most people are resistant to this pathogen. This is about the immunity. More topics we can see later. For that, you have to like, share, and subscribe the channel Nursing Library. Okay, thank you.